Professor Brain Brown's research shows that vulnerability fosters good emotional and mental health. It is a sign of courage. We become more resilient and brave when we embrace who we truly are and what we are feeling. The Vulnerable Scientist podcast is a space for scientists to tell their honest and authentic stories. I am your host, Sarah Nyakeri, who happens to be a scientist, informal science communicator, and I help scientists create personal websites. If you want to support this show, go to www.patreon.com/thevulnerable-scientist. You can also follow this podcast on all social media platforms at TV Scientist Pod. Tell us about the highs and lows that you've faced, maybe starting with the lows that you haven't mentioned throughout your journey.
All right. Highs and lows. Where do we begin? I think I've
mentioned a lot.
Talked mostly about highs.
Yeah. And some lows.
Now let's talk about lows. Okay. Lows. Let me start with lows. Lows. No, I think I actually talked about it when I talked about imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And that when I look back in hindsight, that was the main low for me. I doubted myself a lot, especially in the beginning, mostly because of the environment where I was very intimidating. I was moving from mechanical engineering. I was in the same space with people from aerospace. They knew so much about aerospace. I was researching an aerospace project. And so I was learning essentially so many things I had never seen, apart from some introduction topics that we did in mechanical engineering. Aircraft engine, I was interacting with it for the first time when I was doing my PhD. I was learning so many things at one go. And when I look back, that was main low. So a great deal of imposter syndrome was injected in my system because of that. I doubted my abilities. I doubted whether I could do it. Mostly because I was learning so many things. I was learning the core of aerospace engineering, but also I was learning how to do research, the process of literature reviewing, the process of making sense of a complex project, the process of eating your elephant, if you will. You know, how do you eat an elephant, right? That question of how do you eat an elephant? It was an elephant in front of me, and I was learning how to eat that elephant. So all those things kind of combined, and it was tough. I have to say, there were many days in my first year when I would wake up in the morning, I would take my breakfast, I shower, I open the door, and then I close the door, and I come back to sleep. I just did not want to go to the lab. I did not want to see anyone because I was super aware. And I would say I was in that conscious incompetence. I was just super aware of how much I needed to learn and that people seemed to know what they were doing. Later, anyway, I realized that everyone was dealing with their own their own imposter syndrome in different degrees. But that was much later. So that's number one low. And another law, which I think for someone who moved countries, I was coming from Kenya, different language, different culture, predominantly Black nation. I was going to the UK, developed country, different culture, different weather, different, predominantly white nation. And I suppose adapting to all those spheres of life, weather, food, making friends, different life altogether was also challenging, especially in the beginning. But anyway, just like anything else, time helps you to navigate. And I settled in, and it was all okay. But initially, it was really tough. Another law related to research, I would say another law is when I moved from. But thankfully, by this time, I'd learned, like I mentioned, that how to deal with imposter syndrome, and I knew it's not me, it's not my abilities, it's the process. So when I moved from my PhD area, where I was starting to be a mini expert, into a new research area within aerospace, researching satellite fuels, it kind of reminded me of my first year of PhD, and I was struggling a bit, but thankfully this time I knew I'm back to conscious incompetence, where I'm trying to learn so much and catch up to be able to talk about the topic, to be able to write conference papers, research papers on the topic. Yeah, those are the main. Finance-wise, I didn't really struggle. I've been lucky because I know finance is another thing for PhD or even postdoc. So my PhD was entirely funded by Rhodes Scholarship, and I didn't struggle in that sense. I didn't have to think about my finances, and my projects were fully funded, I think. Most of them. So I didn't even write like grant proposals and things like that. So most of my time I just concentrated on my research, which was a blessing. And my current postdoctoral research is also funded by a fellowship, a generous grant from Schmidt Science Fellowship. And I've not thought about grant writing and things like that because they've been finances. So I've been blessed on that side.
Thanks for saying that. Okay. Is there any other high that you didn't mention when you were talking?
Oh, high. Maybe just it's really high for me is moving from one continent to another,
Because now from Africa to Europe, now to US.
Yes. It's opened my mind in ways I had never imagined. It's also expanded my career possibilities a great deal. And I would say that's another high. Now I'm really, where I am, I'm really flexible career-wise. I've learned so much. I'm so diverse because I can go back to what is conventional mechanical engineering work. I could do what is aerospace engineering work. I could work in the US. I could work in the UK. I could work in Kenya. And I just like that. And also interacting with people, different, diverse people, diverse in terms of academic background, diverse in terms of culture, diverse in terms of religious beliefs, and all the other diversity things. It's changed. I just feel like it's made me a better individual.
Do you want to learn about the strategies for enrolling, thriving, and excelling in a PhD program? Dr. Gladys Ngetich has written a book on the PhD journey with lessons from various PhD students across the globe and from her lessons as an ex-Oxford PhD student. Dr. Gladys is now a postdoc researcher at MIT. For you to get a chance to get a free book, post your favorite podcast episode of the Vulnerable Scientist podcast on any social media account and tag the Vulnerable Scientist social media account with the hashtag The Vulnerable Scientist Book Giveaway. You can now pre-order the book on Amazon or as an ebook on Kindle, Kobo, Thalia, etc. You can get more information on this book on www.gladyschepkirui.com/books.